Hello Bookish friends, welcome to my first wrap-up of 2022. In this video I will talk about the 6 works that I finished in the first 14 days of January. It has been quite a good reading month so far, so let's see which books that I have read in the first 14 days of New Year. Last night I finished my first book of 2022. I'd Rather Be Reading by Bogel. This was a short non-fiction book about books. I read this book for the prompt of reading a feel-good book in past and future readathon, as well as taking tea with Catherine's monthly reading focus, which is read about books in January. Bogel is the writer of the blog Modern Mrs. Darcy, as well as the host of the podcast with the same title, I'd Rather Be Reading. In this book, Bogel talks about all the things that are related to book lovers in short essays. I think I could not find anything about book that was not covered either briefly or in detail in this book. So you can find everything about books and book lovers in this book. You will find this book very, very relatable. Some of the things were the things that I realized in my reading journey. There were some points that I found very, very interesting and have not thought about before. And I also really identified with her words about connecting with bookish people and how it helps us to realize ourselves as a reader. And moreover, it really fulfilled the prompt of a feel-good book. When I was reading this book, I was smiling and nodding all the time. So I think it was a great book to start the new year with. I gave I'd Rather Be Reading by Bogel an 8 out of 10. I finished the book that I was reading for my real-life book club. I read the Turkish edition of Disgrace by J.M. Coetzee, and the Turkish title was Utanç, which is an accurate translation. In this book, we follow a divorced college professor, David, who decides to have a relationship with one of his students, and the consequences of that relationship brings him back to his daughter's life in the rural parts of South Africa. The story takes place in South Africa. Many depressing and hard-hitting events happen, which shakes his view towards the societal norms, as well as having emotional impacts on him. I will try to express my feelings without giving any spoilers. And first of all, this can be one of the most depressing books that I have read in a few years. Although I can read very gory thriller books and some disgusting bits. The event that happened at the middle of the book almost made me think of DNFing the book, because it was so depressing to read about. Although the general plot of the book touches upon many important societal and political details, because the main character was so unlikable and had a so male-centric point of view, the book really failed to move me, with the exception of the section in the middle. But I have to say, the writing was very, very good because of the same male-centric narrative point of view. You can feel extremely sorry for somebody else. You cannot really understand that person unless you're in their shoes. And David, although he loved his daughter very, very much, he really couldn't understand his daughter as well as the student whom he has been in a relationship with. Although I could not really be sure if this point of view was deliberately misogynistic or was actually the thoughts of the author, but I have to give credits when it's due. In summary, I gave this book a 6 out of 10. And I finished 2 books back to back. Yesterday evening, I finished Nemesis by Jo Nesbo. I'm bud reading this series with Naomi at Naomi's Bookshelf and Nikki at Readathon Reads. And this is the fourth book in the series. At the start of the book, Harry is investigating a bank robbery, and he's doing his job pretty well. He has a new team with younger colleagues that he really does like working with. But one day he's asked by an ex-girlfriend of his to have dinner with her. And even though he's not very keen to go, he goes. And the next morning he finds himself in his own bed and not remembering any of the details from last night. The next day he's called on an assignment and finds that his girlfriend Anna is dead. It could be suicide or murder. So it is up to Harry and his team to find out the truth about murder during the bank robbery, as well as the truth behind Anna's death. First of all, I have to say I'm really loving this body reading experience with Naomi and Nikki, and I really enjoyed listening to this book as well. Although the narrator could have been better in giving breaks between the paragraphs, he certainly failed at that. The plot was very interesting and full of surprises, like in all of the books that I've read in this series. So far, I have not been very successful in guessing the guilty parties. And I have to say, I really do like that. I've really grown to love the character of Harry Hole, especially in the previous book, Redbreast. And I continued to care so much for Harry and the characters that he is in a relationship with, either romantically or through police business. And although I'm listening to a translated version of the original text, I think Jo Nesbo's writing style is becoming more and more experienced and more beautiful as the books progress. In summary, I really enjoyed this thriller, and I gave it 8 out of 10. And the second work that I finished was The Coward of Grimsby by Eric Daniel Ryan. I did an advanced review copy, an e-arc of this novelette from Book Sirens in exchange for an honest review. And this was a quick and easy read for me. This novelette takes place in the final years of a Victorian era, and a French fisherman and an English aristocrat team up to find the wreck of a long-lost ship loaded with Spanish gold that disappeared off the African coast while on the run from Napoleon Bonaparte. When they were about to ship, George, the French fisherman, disappears, and the English aristocrat has to go through the adventure alone with a crew, which he actually does not know. I thought this was a very decent short novelette. I liked the writing style of the author. He told an adventure story very well, but because it was so short, I actually could not feel anything for the characters. And if it comes up with longer adventure works, I might try those and like them maybe better. Because of the shortness, I gave this novelette a 6 out of 10. Yesterday I finished one of the Agatha Christie graphic novels that I have bought the Turkish edition of. This graphic novel consists of 2 stories. One of them is And Then There Were None, adapted by François Rivière and illustrated by Leclercq. And the other one was a Hercule Poirot mystery, The Mystery of the Blue Train. And this work was adapted and illustrated by Marc Piskic. My original intention was just to read the graphic novel of And Then There Were None, because it is the chosen book for the Christiefest. And because I have read And Then There Were None before, and although it is my favorite, I prefer to read this wonderful story in the graphic novel version. When I finished it 2 days ago, I couldn't help myself, and yesterday I finished the other story, The Mystery of the Blue Train. As for Then There Were None, I love the story so much. I knew that none of the adaptations would match the original content. And although it was a very decent adaptation, some details were of course lost, but still the clever structure of the mystery was kept. And even though I didn't love the drawing style, I thought it was decent. So I gave that section of this graphic novel edition 8 out of 10. For The Mystery of the Blue Train, the original Hercule Poirot novel is not one of my favorite Hercule Poirot mysteries. It has a very interesting plot twist, but I found some of the details a bit chaotic and a bit coincidental actually. Originally gave that book 7 out of 10, and I also gave its adaptation 7 out of 10. It was actually a good adaptation of the story. But because the original story was a bit chaotic, as I mentioned before, I felt quite the same way about the condensed plans of this graphic novel. I have to say I didn't like the drawing style of Marc Piskic. He drew the male characters quite well, but the female characters looked too much like male characters. In summary, because the average amounted to 7.5, I rounded up to 8 out of 10. I gave the graphic novel adaptations of And Then There Were None and The Mystery of the Blue Train an 8 out of 10. And I finished The Talented Mr. Ripley by Patricia Heisman. This book was the first book of the Clear Reads book club. It is hosted by AJ Dunn Reads and Writes. I had this book on my TBR for a very long time, and when the books for this club was announced, I was very eager to read this book. And that's why I also used it for a book that I cannot wait to read for Past and Future Readathon. In this book, Tom Ripley, a con man, one day is asked by a father of a man, Richard Greenleaf, to convince his son to come back to his hometown. And because he pays him, although Tom was not a close friend of Richard's, Tom decides to give this assignment a try. And there he befriends Richard and his lover Marc. They sort of have a luxurious lifestyle in Italy. Tom becomes very fond of this lifestyle, and one day Tom feels that Richard is gradually getting tired of Tom's friendship, and Tom tries to find a solution to keep this luxurious lifestyle that he loves very much. This book was my first Patricia Heisman book that I have read. I did love her writing style. It was very, very easy to read. She did not deal with unnecessary details, but only stayed in the details concerning this mystery thriller plot. And it was very interesting to follow the point of view of Tom, who's a very interesting character actually. He does really horrific things, but he has this frightening reasoning that somehow makes him believe that he had no choice but to do these horrific things, but that he was actually right to do them. And I read most of this book in just one day, so it had quite a fast tempo as well. Because I saw the adaptation, some of the plot twists did not shock me because I remembered as I read them. But this did not really diminish my reading enjoyment. I'm planning to continue with the Ripley series, and I gave The Talented Mr. Ripley an 8 out of 10. So those were the 6 books that I have read in the first half of January. I think I had quite a successful start to the year. I mostly quite enjoyed what I read. I'm really loving the books that I'm currently reading right now. It is likely to be a success in the second half of January as well. Please comment down below, have you read any of the books that I mentioned in this video? And if you're a new viewer, first of all, welcome. Please like and subscribe. Hope to see you very soon. Bye! As for Turkish word of the day, I'm going to choose coward. Coward means korkak in Turkish, and korkak is our Turkish word of the day. Have a good day!